What's going on, everyone? Art at Patience Metal Fab, and I am going to introduce you to a new build that's coming into our shop. Now, you saw the last couple that we've had that I put on YouTube. We had that Mercedes camera car, we had the Batmobile, that was huge, and then we just recently wrapped up the Camaro ZL1 race car. And we've got something completely different and unique, maybe in the realm of race cars. And I don't know much about this project. All I know, it's a Group B rally shell. I think it's a Renault, but I'm not exactly sure. What I do know is that the customer is a huge Group B enthusiast, and he's kind of gotten to a place in his life where he can play with some really expensive toys like this thing. So apparently it's really special. I want to get my eyes on it, and I want to show you guys exactly what we're going to be working on right behind this trailer. A lot of times when people drop off builds, they don't want to talk about the build, they just kind of want to get out of here. But Brian is so enthusiastic that he decided to actually give us a little bit of insight and detail on this, because what I'm seeing is a bare shell. Can you tell me exactly what we're looking at first?
So that's a 1985 8221 Renault Turbo 2. The 8221 was it's actually the last 4 digits of the VIN number that was specific to the cars that were being homologated for the Maxi Turbo, which was used in Group B. It has the engine is a bit different. It has aluminum roof, aluminum rear hatch. And at the time, when somebody was buying one of these cars, they couldn't specify that they wanted an 8221. They randomly got an 8221 or one that wasn't. And so it was kind of fun that I was able to find one of these. So my dream with this is to, all my life I've been into rally, I've been into all-wheel drive cars, but the European Group B was something that was really special to me. The ultimate goal of this is to drive a car that is the car that I saw when I was a kid, and I get to drive it, and I get to feel what it's like to be sideways in it. I get to feel what it's like to have a turbo just kick you in the ass at like 3,000 RPM, and just everything that's raw about this car. Manual steering, no ABS, no traction control, just the driver, all the imperfections of it. And with you guys building the cage and stiffening up the chassis with all the different stiffening members that I have, I'm going to actually get to experience this car the way it was meant to be experienced. So that's...
Well, I gotta say, your enthusiasm is absolutely infectious, and I cannot wait to see this thing outside of the trailer, rolling it out, and then obviously, I'm sure you can't wait to get started on it as well. So we got a long road ahead to make this shell into what you were talking about, a running, driving car that you can take through the corners, in anger, as they say, in Group B. So yeah, let's get a couple guys out here and maybe unload it.
Absolutely.
As you can see, the car is down to its shell, but there are quite a few miscellaneous items still on it. The big ones like seatbelt pieces, e-brake, shifter, but then there's also miscellaneous hoses, nuts, bolts everywhere. Now we have to take absolutely everything out, including these fiberglass wide body fenders, because once it goes to blasting, it needs to be absolutely cleaned up before we can get it back here and start the real work. So part of my job right now is to take everything off and then label it so that we know how it comes back together. That means putting it in baggies, that means taking pictures of everything to make the reassembly process that much easier. Let's get started on that. With this strip down, we saved the best or the worst for last. Everything is gone, everything unbolted really easily, but these over fenders need to go too. So they're kind of bondoed, fiberglass, you name it in here. It's one piece that you can't just pull off. So I gave the expert Ben the cutting wheel to be able to cut a really crisp line along here, pull these off. We could take care of all the rust with the blasting inside, and then do what we need to do to get these back together and really do a ground up build like this customer wants. So you do the honors, start cutting into it. This is the part of the build where things start getting a little bit interesting and nerve-wracking at the same time because of the one-of-one nature of a lot of these parts. Those over fenders he's cutting off, if he screws up, there's no way we're finding another set of those. Things like the windshield and trim pieces, interior headliner, and things like that, you can't just hop online and pick these up. Some of these might exist overseas, but generally they're very hard to find rare pieces. So that kind of shows you the amount of attention and care that we have to put into a build like this, the amount of trust that the owner gives to us in a high caliber build, because there are no screw ups at this point. We got to go according to plan and do things as perfectly as we can. The really cool thing about a car like this is the history behind it. So it's going to turn into something great, but we have to look back to see why it's a great car to begin with. And in this case, this started life not as a race car, but really a family compact economy car. And we have the evidence of it right under this wide body. So Gary, you mind pulling that off and then explaining what's so special underneath this?
Yeah, see, we go Renault Maxi to the Le Car, just like that. So you can see the narrowness of the Le Car, economy car right here. This is what they stepped out to enter the car into Group B and turn it into what's known as the Renault 5 Turbo 2. They had to make 200 of these cars to make it homologate for racing, and you can see they just took the Le Car and just cut big holes in it. It's crude. You can see the frame rails inside that were added. Nothing real special about it, just cut it up, make 200 of them to go racing. So even though there's a lot going on here, the really cool stuff is in here. Picture this car originally as a front engine, two-wheel drive car. You'd had a nice little seat back here for the kids to sit in, and now we have these massive frame rails, strut towers, a firewall. Again, all this stuff was taken from, they took a car, cut pieces out of it, and just added these components to turn it into the rear engine, rear drive monster that went and raced Group B.
You can tell there's so many modifications and changes that took place between the factory car and making it into a Group B car that, I mean, we're kind of learning along the way what it took to do that. So what I'm gonna do is sit down and do my research so I can clue you guys in, because if you're watching this video, I hope you're getting interested in not only what we're doing to it, but where this car originally came from. So like I said, I'm gonna learn about it and then I'm gonna educate you guys right after this. And once you know a little bit more, we'll get into the really cool fabrication stuff. And that'll include Ben, it'll include Gary and a lot of guys around the shop until this thing rolls out as a running, driving Group B rally car. As you heard earlier in this episode, the owner of the vehicle, Brian, talked a little bit about the individual car, but that made me want to dig deeper and find out about the history of the Turbo 5 and kind of all the cool things that are associated with a build like this. Now, I'm very familiar with JDM cars, but I know nothing about French cars, and I'm guessing a lot of you are in the same boat. So I pulled some stuff online that I want to read through and get you more familiarized with exactly the history of this car. The Turbo Renault 5 was created as a limited production run for rally homologation purposes, allowing Renault to enter rallying on the international stage in direct response to the success seen by the Lancia Stratos. Despite very limited funding, Engineers got to work on the sports version of the economical Renault 5 Alpine Super Mini, converting it into a genuine podium-capable rally car. The race-bred Renault 5 Turbo would debut radically designed box arches, rear bodywork to accommodate the dramatically revised mechanical layout of the car. Unlike the traditional 94 horsepower front NA engine, front-wheel drive configuration of the Renault 5, the 5 Turbo featured a 1.4 turbocharged four-cylinder engine mid-mounted in the car immediately behind the driver, sending 154 horsepower to the rear wheels. The 5 Turbo's narrow front track and short wheelbase, combined with a scant curb weight of 2,100 pounds, provided drivers with a surgically accurate rally car, allowing them high levels of precision. The Turbo 5 is nearly untouchable, unwinding asphalt stages, taking victory at the world's most prestigious rally stage, Monte Carlo in 81, 82, and 85. The race-bred Renault 5 Turbo would end up clinching the 85 European Rally Championship, forever cementing it in the history books. In 84, Group E homologation was sought for the Renault Maxi 5 Turbo to enable it to compete in the World Rally Championship. By the end of the year, Renault produced a batch of just 200 special Turbo 2 cars without any customer orders to allow the racing Maxi 5 Turbo to compete within a higher engine category and utilize wider tires. These superior Turbo 2 cars, dubbed the Type-8221, received an engine with mechanical upgrades, bigger turbo, crankshaft, cylinder head gaskets, and rocker adjustment bolts, which was good for a rumored 180 brake horsepower. With an aluminum roof, additional aero, and geometry changes, all of which enabled it to compete against the Lancia Stratos, the Audi Sport, the Porsche 911S, all in Group B. The Type 8221 was and is now a highly prized vehicle and regarded as the ultimate road-going version of the Turbo 2, while being numerically the rarest of all the R5 Turbo models and the only homologated version for Group B. So with all that being said, this is the car that I'm sitting in, the one of 200 8221 version, which is really cool. You can actually see that all over it, even the windshield. You look at the VIN number that's etched into it, and it has that number at the end of it. So this is a verified shell, and the rarest of the rare when it came to these cars. Well, I hope you found that little excerpt interesting. I know I did, and I learned a little bit more about this car in my research. This is a really special build, obviously for the owner, but also for us. It's something he's been thinking about for years, and something unique and really special that we've never had through here before. We obviously do high-level builds, intensive builds, but there's something extra with this one. So this is just episode 1. We've got a long road to go. Next episode, we're probably going to be tackling some of the metal fabrication inside of the vehicle, and then moving on to the full cage. So you're going to want to catch that one. That means you need to subscribe to our channel if you like this content, like the video, and share it around with your friends. Thank you very much for tuning in. We'll see you in the next episode.